Good morning. We are on Daf Tet Vav. I'm a bet. Today's Daf is Tet Zayin. We are in the middle of discussing the preparation of the Sotah, the water that the woman is going to be required to drink. And we talked about how the Kohen would have a vial, and he would fill the vial with water. And then he would go into the Kodesh of the Beit HaMikdash, make a right turn, and there would be a floor tile that had a ring on it that would allow the floor tile to be picked up. And then the person would pick up the floor tile, and the Kohen would pick up the floor tile and take some dirt from underneath the floor tile and use that and make sure that there was enough dirt that it was apparent that the dirt would appear on the water. And so that was what our Mishnah said. And now we are going to discuss this particular discussion about the need to include the dirt from the Beit HaMikdash, the dirt from the Kodesh. And so we are at the two dots near the bottom of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines up from the bottom. So Makam Hayasham Amma, there was a square, an Amma by Amma square, where there was a hook or a ring in the tile, and you would pick it up and you would get the dirt from underneath it. That's what the language of our Mishnah says. So now we're going to get two views on whether or not this was actually a requirement that dirt absolutely had to come from this location or not. So Tana Rabbanan, we have Brisa number 1. We're going to have two Brisas. Brisa number 1 is going to outline a first opinion. Brisa number 2 is going to outline two different views. The second of the two will be the same as the first opinion, but it will thereby set up a second view. So umina efar asher yiyeh, right? The point is that the Kohen should take the dirt that is from the floor of the Mishkan, right? It says, just to read the entire pasuk, v'lakach hakohen mayim kedoshim b'kli cheres, meaning that the Kohen would take water, holy water, in a vessel, umin ha'afar asher yiyeh b'karka hamishkan, and from the dirt that was on the ground, from the ground of the Mishkan. Yikaka Kohen v'nasan elamayim. The Kohen would take it and he would put it into the water. So that's the pasuk that we are trying to understand exactly how it gets accomplished. So Yachal Yitakein mi b'chutz v'yachnis. I would have thought that when it says that the Kohen should take some earth, it's saying that he should take it from outside the Mishkan and bring it into the Mishkan. Meaning that because it says Asher Yehiyeh B'Karka HaMishkan, that will be in the Karka of the Mishkan, suggesting that there's some sort of a process of taking it out. But Talmud Lomar B'Karka HaMishkan, but then it says that it's from the floor of the Mishkan. So B'Karka HaMishkan, now if it's going to be from the floor of the Mishkan, well then, if it had just said the floor of the Mishkan without referencing the future tense, so Yachol Yachor B'Kardomot, I would have thought that you should literally dig with a shovel. Well, Talmud Lomar Asher Yehiyeh, it's that which will be, meaning it is already supposed to be there. It's going to be something that just exists. It's not about the creation of the dirt. So how do we accomplish that? Yesham have. If there is, so you take that. Ein sham, tain sham. And if there isn't, well, then bring some dirt and put it there, and then it will become dirt of the Mishkan. So that is approach number 1. Tanya Idach, we got another brisa that's going to outline and actually discuss, have a machlokus, and to provide two different views. Umina afar asher yiyeh v'gomer. So what do we do from the fact that it says that he's going to take it from the earth that is going to be there? again, that teaches that he can have dirt from outside the Mishkan and bring it in. But Karka HaMishkan, and why does it say the Karka of Mishkan? It is not, in fact, telling us a preference, but rather, Isi ben Yehuda Omer, Lahavi Karka, Shilo, No, V'givon, Ubeit Olamim. It's to tell us that it could even be from the dirt on the floor of the Mishkan, whether that Mishkan is the Mishkan, of course, the literal understanding would be the Mishkan in the wilderness, but it could also be the Mishkan in Shiloh. It could even be when we were having sacrifices in Nov and Givon, which may not have been the formal Mishkan, and of course it refers to Beit Olamim, namely the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Now, Rashi here, and we take a look at the last Rashi on Tedvavim Bet, says that again, Isi ben Yehuda Omer lehavi karka beis olamim, that really we should just skip the reference to Shiloh and to Nov and Givon. And why is that? So Hachi Garsinan La B'Sifri. That's the way it is said in the Sifri, in the Midrash. The Lo Garas L'Rabot Shiloh v'Nov and Givon, and we don't reference Shiloh, Nov and Givon. Ubeit Olamim de Shiloh. Ubeit Olamim. We don't say all of them. We just say Beit Olamim. De Shiloh Mishkan Hu, because of course Shiloh itself was the Mishkan, so of course below Tzarek L'Rabuya. You don't need anything to add that. Dehu Ikar HaKasav. That's exactly what the Torah was referring to. V'no v'givon ein mashkin basotos. We would not have done any sotos at that time. Dahabama havi, because the altar at that time was a time where the altar, even in according to Rashi's understanding, even in Nov and Givon, was only treated like a bama. It didn't have a full altar status. It didn't have the full status as if it was the altar of the Beit HaMikdash or the Mishkan. V'lo havisham aron ela mizbeach, and there was no aron there. There was just the mizbeach hanechoshes, just the outer courtyard mizbeach levado alone. V'lo karva behen mincha sota, and you wouldn't bring on that altar the Sotah mincha offering. V'lo shum chovas yachid, you wouldn't bring any individual's obligational or offering. She'ein lazman kavua, that didn't have a specific time associated with it. So, for example, of course, you'd bring a Pesach, but that would not be, but not other kinds of offerings. Keda amar b'shchitas kodshim, as we say in shchitas kodshim and in Megillah, aval Beit Olamim. But when it comes to the Beit HaMikdash, there, now we need to include it. Shelo tomar mishkan namar v'lo mikdash. So Beit HaMikdash Yerushalayim kari le Beit Olamim, and the Beit HaMikdash in the Yerushalayim is called the Beit Olamim. And why is that? Lefisha ein achar kedusha. So heter b'makom acher, because once we had the Beit HaMikdash, so there's no possibility of having it located in another place. Here's Mark and Laura. Bishop, sorry, we didn't. They didn't have the table set up upstairs, so we're meeting over here. Bishop lo sharsa Shrina b'makom acher. Stan is on the computer.
Hi, Stan.
So so that is the story. So there's not a possibility of having somewhere else. So basically, Rashi changes the gears of our Gemara and says that it should just be
second floor or the third.
Hopefully, back on the third floor. Yeah, back on the third floor. Okay, so that is Rashi's approach. Sorry, Kanan?
You can't do the Beit HaMikdash. It's fixed in place, right?
Correct.
You can't even move it a couple feet.
That's correct.
Interesting.
And so now Tosos, at the top of Tet Zion Amud Aleph, Tosos takes a different approach. Tosos says, no, it doesn't have to be that way. So Rashi go res lahavi karka beis olamim. V'shibish hagirsa Shiloh no v'givon mishum de no v'givon ein mashkin bahen sotos mishum de havi minchas yachid she'ein kavua lazman. Okay, so that's the explanation that Rashi gave, right? Rashi said we're going to exclude those words because in either Shiloh you don't need it, or Nov and Givon maybe it wasn't offered. Vitema, but now he asks a question. I don't understand. Sheshibsha mishum kush yazu dilma kasaber isi ben Yehuda karebi Yehuda. Maybe Isi ben Yehuda actually holds like Rebbe Yehuda. Damar b'perak basra d'shchitas kadshim kol shahatzibor v'hayachad makrivin ba'oa moed shebamidbar makrivin ba'oa moed shebegilgal v'ein chiluk b'yachid ela bamato sheberosh gago. That when we say that you could not have a bama and offer a personal korban on it that didn't have a time associated with it, that was a person that was not about that it was not a statement about the bama that was in Nov and Givon, but rather it was a full-fledged mizbeach that could take any kind of korban, and that's maybe why we have the reference to Nov and Givon. And so that's why we need to specifically include Nov and Givon, because that was a bama, and maybe in fact it did allow the offerings of a Sotah at that time. So okay, so that was approach number one of the second brisa. So again, the second brisa, the first approach of the second brisa, is to say not that the reason that we talked about the floor of the Mishkan was not in order to tell you that the dirt had to come from the Mishkan, or that was preferred, but rather to tell you that it would be okay to use the dirt of Nov, Givon, according to Tosos and according to everybody, the Beit HaMikdash. So Isi ben Menachem. So this is a machlokus between two Isis, one Isi ben Yehuda and the other Isi ben Menachem. And Isi ben Menachem says, Ein it tzarich, you don't need a specific limud in order to tell us that the Beit HaMikdash's dirt is included, that you could use that. Uma betuma kala lo chala kakasuv, that because when it comes to something lenient, namely that the entering of the Beit HaMikdash when one is tameh, the Torah did not distinguish between the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. Well, then betumas eshes ish chamura lo kol shekain. Well, then certainly when it comes to the tuma of an eshes ish and the fact that we're going to go through this process in order to potentially cause this woman to die, which, although one would not necessarily call kares, which is the punishment of entering the Beit HaMikdash or the Mishkan while tameh, to be lenient, but relative to the death, then it is lenient. And so as a result, when it comes to the rules associated with Eshes Ish,
Rashi or somebody else?
So the main star is going to be Rashi. Yeah, we're going to have a couple more good Rashis here. So as a result, Im Kain Mal Talmud Lomer Bakarka HaMishkan Shelo Yavi Mitoch Kupato. That if you're going to bring it, if you're going to have to bring dirt, don't bring it directly from your home box. Meaning, if people would have in their home a box of dirt in order to spread along the floor because you had a dirt floor. And if your floor got dirty or got a groove in it or something, you would have spare dirt at home in order to fill it in. And this is what Rashi is going to say. So Im Kain, let's take a look at this Rashi. First Rashi in the narrow lines, or I guess the second narrow line. Im Kain matam lomer bakarka shelo yevi mitoku pato letok kli, meaning that you don't go directly from the guy's home, the dirt in the guy's home, directly into the vessel that's going to hold the water. V'yachnis leheichal, and bringing that into the heichal. Ella mikarkioso. Rather, you should use the karka of the heichal itself. Yitol. V'im ein sham, and if there isn't any karka in the heichal itself, yavi v'aniach sham, then you take and you put there. And again, this is exactly this second opinion. This opinion of Isi ben Menachem matches the opinion of our first brisa that we began today with. And now after you've put the dirt on the ground at the in the Beit Hamikdash or the Mishkan, Yitalenu, then you can take it. V'niskayim asher yiyeh, and then you'll fulfill the fact that you took the concept of that will be v'niskayim b'karka, and you'll have fulfilled the requirement of dirt. Tidarshinan la'el, as we learned earlier, b'sifri, and also in the Sifri, that it should come from the Beit Hamikdash. Lo tani b'sifri lo tani hachi lahach brayso v'omer ani midrash sheni hu b'fnim acherim panim acherim. All right, so this is not specifically what's in this Sifri, but this is just another version. So the point is that
take it from your home, put it on the floor of the Beit Hamikdash, and then pick it up.
yes, that's exactly what you would do. You would take dirt from your home. This is assuming that there isn't dirt on the Beit Hamikdash, in the Beit Hamikdash that's available, meaning already dug up dirt. We're not talking about, obviously, the whole ground. Much of the ground was dirt. So, but we're talking about,
wasn't it?
a tile floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the extent that it was a tile floor. Yes, I mean clearly in the Kodesh, it was a tile floor, because that's why they say you had to lift up the tile, the marble tile. But I had always imagined that the rest of the floor of the Azara was not tiled. Although I have seen pictures that show it being tiled. Obviously not live pictures, but in any event, do you have
It's
an insight on
remarkable
this?
that the Torah doesn't say one way or another. I'm watching the Torah wouldn't say it for the temple, but for the Mishkan, it doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah, we get the dimensions, but we get the roof and how high the roof was, right, and everything.
Yep.
We don't get what the floor was.
That's correct. That's correct. There's certainly, it seems like the Mishkan was on dirt, and that makes a lot of sense because it was supposed to be movable. If it was, it would be a big pain to have to lay a floor every time one set up the Mishkan. Of course, at the same time, you probably would want to set up some kind of leveling system so that you would be able to work on flat ground. But all right, in any event, so now we're going to ask an important question. Well, what happens if there is no dirt available? Now, on some level, there's obviously somewhere there's going to be dirt. But the way that Rabbi Leibowitz highlighted this is that I think makes a ton of sense, is that the question is not about whether or not what happens if you don't have any dirt anywhere, but the question is going to be, we're going to now ask, well, what can we bring ash instead of dirt? And it makes sense, right? If the goal is to bring from the Beit Hamikdash, well, there is always ash that's available. And so if in fact we could bring ash, that will make our lives materially easier, and we won't. And so as a result, we wouldn't have to bring anything from outside the Beit Hamikdash. And so maybe you might think that ash from inside the Beit Hamikdash is better. So we're going to give two efforts to answer this question, but let's take a look at the question. Ibailahu, Ein Sham Afar. If you don't have any dirt, Ma'ushi Yitin Afer. What's the story with ash? And just as a reminder for my own self, and for those who find it useful, Afer sounds like it begins with the letter A. A is the first letter of ash, and that's how I remember that A and Afer is ashes, and therefore Afar is dirt. I don't know if that is helpful, but it's helpful for me. Alibas to Beit Shammai lo tibaila. Now, when it comes to Beit Shammai, we can't ask this question. De Amri lo matzine Afer shikari Afar. He never thinks that there is a place where one calls Afer Afar, that there's never a switch between the two, and therefore one cannot understand this, cannot possibly make this adjustment. But Kiti Bailach, where do we ask this question? According to Aliba de Beit Hillel, the Amri Matsinu Afer Shikari Afar, because we find a place where Afer is called Afar, and what is that location? Afal got the Ikre Afar, Hacha Bakarka. Oh, I'm sorry. So, and where is that location? We will see that is in connection with the Para Aduma. That when it comes to the Para Aduma, there is one place where it says Afer with an ayin, and so as a result, that is a reference to Afar. And so as a result, Beit Hillel says that it could be considered, and Beit Shammai does not consider that reference a relative reference for this conversation. So as a result, what would Beit Hillel say? So the question, according to Beit Hillel, is the following: even though ashes can sometimes be called dirt, but here we need to have karka and a mishkan, and that we need specifically the dirt from the floor of the mishkan, which would not be ashes. Oh, Dilma, hi bekarka mishkan. Look at the Isi ben Yehuda. Look at the Isi ben Menachem Yehuda Asi. No, it's not that. The reason that it's telling us about the floor of the mishkan, that's not in order to tell you that the dirt has to be dirt and can't be ashes, but either it's telling us that dirt from the Beit Hamikdash would be okay and not just dirt from the Mishkan, or it's telling us that you can even bring dirt from elsewhere, but it isn't telling us anything about ashes. So two efforts. So Tashma. Da'amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yishmael said in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, B'shlosha Mekomos halacha okeves mikra. There are three places where halacha l'Moshe Misinai undermines and uproots or takes the ankles away or undercuts the pasuk, the way that we understand a verse. Torah amra be'afar. The Torah says that when it comes to slaughtering a non-domestic animal, a chaya or a bird or an oaf, that you need to cover the blood with earth. The halacha b'kol davar. But the truth is that the halacha l'Moshe Misinai is that you're allowed to use anything. HaTorah amar basar. Then when it comes to a nazir not cutting his hair, the Torah references a ta'ar, a razor, v'halacha b'chol davar. But the halacha is that he's not allowed to cut his hair with anything. HaTorah amra sefer. The Torah says when it comes to the writing of a get, that it needs to be written on a sefer, which is understood usually as some kind of parchment, v'halacha b'chol davar. But again, in each of these cases, the halacha is that it can be written on anything.
This is
V'im isa. Now, if in fact we're saying that we should be allowed to use ashes instead of dirt, lichshav nami hai. Why don't we include in Rabbi Yishmael's count this law and say that this should also be included? So Tana v'Shayir, well, maybe Rabbi Yishmael left out this item, and there are other items. Well, umay shayir dahai shayir. We have a general principle that you don't just leave out one item in a list. That if in fact something has been left out, then there must have been multiple things left out. Because otherwise, why was this specific item left out? So shayir mitzorah, maybe we can say that the other thing that was left out is a mitzorah. The Tanya, because we have a brisa that says the following: V'haya bayom hashivi'i yigalach es kol se'aro. On the seventh day, he needs to cut all of his hair. Kulal, that is a general rule. So the general rule would seem to imply every hair everywhere on the body needs to be cut. Es rosho es kanova es gabos enav. He needs to shave off. This is talking about a mitzorah during the course of their purification process, at the end of the purification process. And it says that they need to cut all the hair on the head, the beard, and the eyebrows. Well, 1 second, that's a prat. And then the Torah continues and says that kol se'aro yigaleach, and then he should shave all his hair. Chazar uklal, so we have klal prat klal. Iatadan ela keina prat. Well, we have a general rule that when you have a klal prat klal, that the middle category, a general rule followed by specific items followed by a general rule, then you need to apply the general rule subject to the categories that would be set up by the specific items. So ma prat meforish makom kinus seyar v'nireh. So just as all of these locations, the head, the beard, the eyebrows, are all places where one can, where hair is gathered and one can readily see it. Okay, so unlike, let's say, the inside of the ear, in the ear canal or inside your nostrils. So to any other hair that is in a place that is gathered and will need to be shaved. So ma Rabbo, what does this include? So Rabbi say siar haraglayim. It includes the hair on the legs. Now, Rashi explains here that when it comes to hair on the legs, it does not, in fact, mean simply, the hair on one's legs. That is a uniform covering. There's no specific location, but rather it is, if we take a look, 1, 2, 3, 5 lines down in the widest lines, the oto makom, it's that specific location, meaning the pubic area. Vilishna mi'al yuta nakat, and we specifically are just using a cleaner form of language. So my miyat, and what would it exclude? Miyat de beta sheki de bekule gefe, and it would include it would exclude the hair in the person's armpits, which are not generally visible because usually you don't have your arms up to show them to everyone, and it would exclude the hair that is uniformly over a person's body because it's not gathered together. But that's not the halakha. So again, the Torah itself, one would have thought, would only require the shaving on the 7th day of a Mitzorah of public of places that could be seen without anybody moving around, and could be seen are places where hair gathers. But the hilchos of migalea kidlat. But the truth is that one is supposed to shave like a gourd, like a cucumber that has no hair on it. So Tanan, and we have a Mishnah that highlights the fact that you're supposed to shave completely. Originally, the Kohen comes to shave the Mitzorah. Ma'avir tar al kol b'saro. He takes the razor on his whole body. The Katani Seifa, and then in the end of that Mishnah, what does it say? Ubayom hashvi migalchot tiglachat shniya kediglachat rishona. That it just like that first shave on day 1, where the person passes, where the Kohen passes a razor over the person's entire body to take every single hair off of his body. So too, that's exactly the way the second shaving is going to be. So we see that even though the natural understanding of the Torah would say that the person should in fact have to shave only part of their body, so too we're shaving the entire body. And so this, together with the case of the Afar and Afer, now create 2 things that were left off of Rabbi Yishmael's list. And so now that we have 2 things that were left off of Rabbi Yishmael's list, we could say that Afar and Afer Afer can be used as a substitute for Afar. Well, Amar Rav Yitzchak, so now we're going to respond to this 3 different reasons why this might not be a good second exception. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, kachashiv halacha okeves mikra, okeves midirabanan. So when Rabbi Yishmael was counting, he was counting based on sort of the simple read of the Torah. Here, although we would still say that applying klal product klal is a deoraisa rule, but this is applied by the rabbis, meaning it's the logic created by the rabbis. And so as a result, even though that may not be what Rabbi Yishmael was trying to list. So that...
I thought these things were considered halakha l'moshe misinai.
Yes, it absolutely would be halakha l'moshe misinai. When we say d'Rabbanan here, what we are really saying is that it's the rabbis who are applying what we're learning. And so it's using the principle of klal product klal. The principle klal product klal is halakha l'moshe misinai, but how it gets applied and how we understand it could be understood as being based on the rabbis, even though what we actually derive from it would be considered a d'oraisa halacha. So it's a loose usage of the term rabbanan here. No, 100% that it's not completely clear. Okay, so that's reason number 1 that maybe Rabbi Yishmael might not have counted this. And again, assuming that Rabbi Yishmael didn't count it, then we have a problem because we only have 1 exception. And so as a result, we're going to say that maybe there shouldn't be any exceptions. So number 2, Rav Papa Amar, ki kakashiv halakha okeves v'okeres. What was the nature of the things that Rabbi Yishmael was excluding? That was where it was a complete undermining. Ha okeves umosefesi. but this is really not a full undermining. It is just adding to the things. Most of the things that are going to be shaved were listed in the Torah. This is just saying, in addition, you should shave these additional things. And there's nothing in the Torah that specifically says not to shave those things. So that would be Rav Papa's explanation for why maybe this wouldn't have been listed according to Rabbi Yishmael. And Rav Ashi Amar, Hamas Nisa Mani, who's our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yishmael, meaning who is the brisa that says that that this follows? Maybe it's Rabbi Yishmael, the Darish Klalu Prate, that Rabbi Yishmael has this rule about limiting of how to learn a Klal Prat. And that's why he would say that you don't have to shave all of the areas. But when it comes, as we turn to Ted Zion Mabet, Tidlas Mani, but who is the Mishnah that says that you need to shave like a gourd, like a cucumber, and have it all be totally smooth? Rabbi Akiva, that's Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva doesn't use Klal Prat. You never heard of Rabbi Akiva?
Never.
Oh, Rabbi Akiva is a great Tana. He was the one who really only began to learn when he was 40. He didn't know anything until he was 40. And there are wonderful stories about him. So we'll highlight some good stories as we go through the Gemara together. So what did Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva said, rather than apply this principle of klal prato klal, there's another principle that could apply in this situation, and it's called riboy miut. The darish riboy miute. He's the one who says that you use inclusions and exclusions. Tanya, right? So we have the first thing is a complete inclusion, right? Riba, everything should be included. Ed Roshov, Ed Zakanov, Ed Gabot Enav. That's a miyat. Then the fact that it references the head, beard, and eyebrows. And then Ved Kolsa Ro Yigaleh Chazav Riba. And now you have a return to an overall inclusion. So Riba Umiyat Veriba. So what do you do when you have a Riba Miyat Riba? That is different than a Klal Protocol. Now, how you determine which one you use, it seems like Rabbi Akiva would not generally use the concept of Klal Protocol, but rather he would use this concept of Riba Miyut Riba. And what's the rule there? Riba Hakol. Really, you include everything. And my Riba de Kule Gufe. And so here you would include your entire body. Umay miyat, but 1 second, we have something that we need to exclude. So miyat seyar shebetoch hachotem, you would exclude the hair that's inside your nose. And so as a result, that is the basis for saying that you shave like a gourd, meaning that Rabbi Yishmael would not necessarily agree with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yishmael might actually say that, in fact, the only parts that the Metzora would shave in the second shaving are the parts where it's exposed generally and it is hair altogether. And so that's the only parts that we would shave. And so that's why it's not an exclusion. Now, Tosfos here wonders, well, okay, now that we've come up with 3 bases to say that really there's only one exclusion, can't we use this as a proof in the opposite direction to say, given that that this would be an exclusion from Rabbi Yishmael, doesn't this show that it must be that Rabbi Yishmael does not hold of this? And so Tosfos answers, no, maybe, although we have 3 different proofs, as is often the case when you have 3 different explanations, none of the explanations are so perfect. And so as a result, maybe we would still say that we have two things that Rabbi Yishmael left off his list. But so as a result, we have left the first proof with no definitive answer. And now we turn to the second proof. So my hava Allah. So what was decided about this? So Tashma, listen to the following. Da'am Rav Huna bar Ashi Amar Rav. So it was said in the name of Rav. Ein sham afar. If there's no earth, maybe rakbuvis yarak umakadesh. You can bring the leftover decayed vegetables and you can sanctify that. And so the implication is maybe just as you can use leftover vegetables, you'd be able to use ashes. But that is not in fact a good proof, because the rakbuvis yarak hu dahavi afar. maybe decayed vegetables are considered like earth, but afer lo havi afar, but ash would not be. So the bottom line is that we are unable to answer our question. And so it's not clear whether ash would be permitted to be used.
So in other words, we have to exclude something else from the list in order, because
That's correct. We have to exclude, if you have one omission from a list, then you need to have a second omission in order to say that you actually found an omission, because nobody would leave just one item off a list.
what if they just forgot or something? No.
So we would need to have some other citation
Okay.
to support
So
that.
if I left 2 things off the list, that means I left a lot of things off the list.
Well, it could mean that you left more than 2 things off the list, but at least you have to, if you left, everybody is assumed to be wise enough to not leave one thing off the list. That if that's basically the concept of Tanya V'Shire, my Shire, Daha Shire. So wherever this happens, whenever we find something that's left off a list, we will always try to say, okay, must be that there's at least another thing left off the list, because nobody would purposely leave just one item off the list, unless there was an affirmative reason to leave it off the list. And then we go in and we explain what the reason would be.
But if I left 2 things off the list, that means I could have left other things off.
Yes,
So,
correct. That's exactly right. That's
okay.
exactly right. All right. Okay. So, Kadei sheyera al hamayim. So we're told that you need to put enough dirt into the container so that it's visible. So Tana Rabbanan. So we have the rabbis taught shlosha tzrichim sheyereu. There are 3 things that need to be visible. Afar sotah, the earth of the sotah, the dirt of the sotah in the container. Ve'ever para, when you mix the ashes of the para aduma into the water, so that also needs to be visible. Verok yivama, and the spittle, when a yivama, when a woman who is engaging in chalitza spits at the yavam, so that also needs to be visible. Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Amru af dam tzipor. Similarly, the blood of a mitzora's bird that needs to be mixed with water, that also needs to be visible. So my time at the Rabbi Yishmael, what's the reason that Rabbi Yishmael says that you need to have the visibility of the blood when you mix it with the water? Right? The pasuk says that you need to dip the bird. There are 2 birds in the ceremony. One bird gets killed, and now the second bird is, and the cedar wood and the scarlet wool and the hyssop are all dipped into the blood and water that was related to the second bird. Vitanya, and we have of the following brisa, bidam, that it was in blood. So yachal b'dam v'lo b'mayim. I might have thought that it needed to only be dipped in blood without being any water, right? And here's the pasuk, right? The pasuk says, "Et hatzipora chaya yikach ota." So that you take the live bird, that eitza erez, and the and you take the cedar wood, ve'et shani hatolat, and you take the scarlet wool, ve'et ha'izov, and you take the hyssop, v'tovel otam, and you dip them. That hatzipora chaya, along with the live bird, bidam, in the blood, hatzipora shchuta, of the bird that was killed, al hamayim chayim, on top of the water that was that was from a spring. Mayim chayim generally means that water from a spring. So I might have thought that all you need to do is dip it in the blood. Now, Talmud Lomer, bamayim. Now, the truth is that the pasuk that I just read doesn't say bamayim, it says hamayim. But in any event, we're going, and as a result, Rashi says that we should just use the word mayim here. But in any event, we'll just read it the way the Gemara has it. But the bottom line is that we're referencing it as it's the mayim that's in this pasuk. So therefore the pasuk adds the word water. Well, imayim yachol b'mayim v'lo b'dam. I might have thought that you should dip it in the water and not the blood. So Talmud lomer b'dam, and that's why we need to say the blood as well. Well, how do you do both? Maybe mayim shadam tzipor nikar bahem. So we need to have a mixture of blood and water where the blood is recognizable in the water, the comma. And how much water do we require? Revius, a revius. Okay, the Rabbanan. So 1 second, if that's the case, how come the rabbis don't say that you don't agree with this and list this as a fourth rule? So, and which implies that you don't need it to be recognizable. Well, that whole pasuk is teaching the rule itself. Here's what the Torah is telling you. At bil b'dam uvemayim, you need to dip it into a mixture of blood and water. It's not telling you whether or not that the blood needs to be visible. It's just telling you that you need to have both. Rabbi Yishmael, im kain lichtov rachmana v'tava bahem. Well, why not just say in them? Why did you say b'dam uvemayim lamali? Why do you reference both blood and water? So, Lanikar, isn't it just so that it should be clear that you have to recognize the presence of the blood? The Rabbanan say back, no, I don't think so. Because ikas of Rahmana Tavo Bahem, if the Torah had just said that you dip it in them, Hava Amina, I might have thought that you dip it in the blood on its own, and you dip it on the water on its own, and you don't dip them in the combination of the two. So, Kasav Rahmana B'damu V'mayim La'arban, that is how you know that you need to dip it in both. And Rabbi Yishmael says back 1 second, La'arban Krach Rinaksif. We know that they've got to be mixed because of the prior pasuk. And the prior pasuk says, V'shachad es hatzipor ha'achat, right? The pasuk says the following, V'shachad ha'kohen, V'shachad es hatzipor ha'achat, el kli cheres al mayim chayim, right? It's pretty clear that according to Rabbi Yishmael, that you need to shech the bird and have the blood drip into the vessel that is holding the water. V'Rabbanan. And what do the rabbis say about that pasuk? No. If I were to only have that other pasuk, hava amina lishchatei samach lamana. I might have thought that you need to just slaughter it close to where the water is. V'ninkatinu livridin. And then you take you hold the neck closed after you've shechted it, and so the blood does not drip out. And then you put it into another vessel. So Kamash Milan, that's why we need the second pasuk to tell us that in fact it has to be mixed. So that is the machlokus between Rabbi Yishmael and the rabbis as to why the fourth item is not listed according to the rabbis and is listed according to Rabbi Yishmael. So by Minei Rabbi
last word on this.
What was that?
The rabbis get the last word on this.
Yes, the rabbis get the last word on this because presumably we hold like the rabbis. And so as a result, you do not need the blood to be recognizable. So now we're going to have a question.
Recognizable anyway?
Excellent question. And I would say that the next Gemara is addressing that exact issue. So let's take a look. So by Mine Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Zera. So Rabbi Yirmiyah asked Rabbi Zera, Gedola umadechas esamayim. What happens if the blood is so great from the bird that it completely overwhelms the water and you can't tell that there's any water? Or katana v'nidchas mivnei, or it's so small that it's as if it's not there at all as a result of the water. So mahu, what's the law? So Amar Le, Rabbi Zera responds, Lava mina lach. Haven't I told you lo tipik nafshecha? Levar mihilchasa. Don't ask questions where it's not following the halacha. And what do I know from this? Why is your question not following the halacha? Because b'tzipor drar shiaru rabbanan. The rabbis used a drawer bird, meaning that there's a specific kind of bird that needs to be used in this context. Ein lecha gedola shemadechas es hamayim ve'ein lecha katana shenidchas mibnei hamayim. And you're never going to have something that's going to be too big or too small. And so let's take a look in Rashi. Rashi's just a little bit below the Hagota Bach on the left-hand side of the page, just above the Gilyon Hashas. V'tzipor drar, shiuro chachamim. The chachamim made an estimate. She'ein b'mina, this species of bird, gedola shemadcha esamayim, v'lo she'ein b'mina gedolish and you're not going to get something that's so big in this species that it overwhelms the water. V'lo ketanish nidkam imneyamayim shehein revius, and it's not going to be so small that it'll be undermined by the water. And so the bottom line is that even though the rabbis essentially don't actually require that the blood be recognizable, for all intents and purposes, as Hanan just highlighted, the blood's going to be recognizable because you need to use a bird that is appropriate for the size that will create enough blood that it will not either overwhelm the water, nor will it be overwhelmed by the water. Okay, so Tana Rabbanan, so the rabbis taught in a brisa, hikdim afar lamayim pasal. We learned, what did we learn in our Mishnah? In our Mishnah, we said that you start with the water and then you put the dirt on. Well, what happens if you put the dirt in first? So if you put the dirt in, hikdim afar lamayim pasal, then it is not going to be valid. That is the Tanakama. That is the rabbi's position. Rabbi Shimon Machshir. Rabbi Shimon says, no, it's okay. Why is it okay? My time of the Rabbi Shimon, tiksiv. This is the pasuk that I was referring to earlier, where even though it says afar, it clearly means afer, because this is written in connection with the paraduma, and there is no requirement of dirt, earth, with respect to the paraduma. And it says, and they shall take for the tame person some of the ashes, but really it means the word is written afar, dirt, of the burning of the chatas. Now, why did they use the word ashes? Why didn't they use afer instead of afar? Vitanya, we've got a brisa that explains it. Rabbi Shimon, v'chi afarhu. Was it in fact afar? Was it in fact dirt? V'halo aferhu. It's ashes. So shina kasu b'mashma'o ladun heimenu gzeira shava. Now, the reason that they did that, the Torah changed its wording, is that we were supposed to learn a gzeira shava. We're supposed to connect the two issues. We're supposed to connect the issues of the para aduma and the sotah, where you use specifically afar. So nemar kan afar, it says over here by the para aduma afar, v'nemar lahalan afar, and it says by the sotah afar. Ma lahalan afar al gabi mayim. So just as in connection with the sotah, it's clear that from the context you need to put the afar on the water, as opposed to the other way around. Afkan afar al gabi mayim. So to here, we put the afar here, really the ashes, the afer, on the water. You put the ashes on the water. Umakan hiktim afar lamayim kasher. But now we have a learning in the other direction. So when it came to learning from the sotah, we learned that the water should ordinarily go first. But when we learn from paraduma to the other situation, we know that ashes, when it comes to the paraduma, can come first. Ashes are okay to come first. So aflahalan, so too over there in the case of sotah, hikdim afar lamayim kasher, it would be okay if the afar came first. Bahasa minalan. All right, so now you've said that we're going to learn from paraduma to the case of sotah, that if it's okay if the ashes / dirt were put into the container first and then the water. But how did you know that by the paraduma it was okay for the ashes to go in first? So trei Christ ksivi. We have two verses. Ksiv alav, right? The pasuk says, let me find the right pasuk. V'lakhu l'tamei me'afar sreifat hachatat v'nasan alav mayim chayim el keli. Right? You put on it. On it implies on the ashes. That implies that the ashes should go first. Alma efer beresha. That shows that the ashes go first. Uksiv mayim chayim el keli. But it also says in a different pasuk, v'tziva kohen v'shachat es tzipor achat. Oh no, that's not it. It says, let me find the right pasuk. It says. No, it says, I see. It says in connection with, in that same verse, right? It says, V'lakum l'tamei me'afar sreifat v'nasan alav mayim chayim el keli, right? At the end, those last words suggest mayim chayim el keli. So that implies Alma Mayim Beresha, right? It goes directly, the Mayim Chaim goes directly into the vessel. So that suggests that the water should go first. So how do we have it that you can do either first? Well, the answer is Ratzah Zenosing, Ratzah Zenosing. You could put either one in either order.
Wow.
So, yeah, the Rabbanan and the rabbis, El Keli Dafka, the rabbis say, no, when it says that the water needs to go into the vessel, that's telling us that it needs to go the vessel first. Alav Arvan. And the fact that we also say that there should be alav, that in some level the ashes should be on underneath, that is to tell you that you need to mix it up. You mix up the ashes with the water. Well, how do you know, rabbis, that in fact that the El Keli is what needs to be precise, and that the El Keli means that you put the water in first? Maybe the alav is dafka. Maybe the alav means that you need to put the ashes in first, and that's what's required. And El Keli shetehiyusan b'kli, and the El Keli just tells you that when you put the spring water into the vessel, it needs to come directly from the spring. So mamatzinu b'chol makom machshir lamala, akan machshir milmala. And so the answer is no. If I had to make a choice, I want the thing that causes the object to be permitted to be on top. So to here, the thing that allows the object to be permitted should be on top. And let's take a look at Rashi, and with that we'll conclude. So machshir lamala, afar hu hamachshir, right? The dirt is the thing that causes the water of the sotah to be permitted. Et hamayim livdok otah. That is what enables her to be checked. V'chein dam tzipor shel mitzora shemachshir es hamayim. Similarly, when it comes to the blood of the bird, that for a mitzora, it needs to be on top. It makes kosher the water and blood mixture that is going to be used lahazah for sprinkling. So afkan, afar really should be afer, machshir esamayim. So too, when it comes to the ashes that are used in connection with the para aduma, the ashes need to be on top. And so as a result, we end up with the machlokas that we just saw a few moments ago, where Rabbi Shimon says that you can mix up the order. It's okay for the earth to be put into the container first, but the rabbis say, no, as dafka, we have to have the water first and then the dirt. And similarly, by the ashes of a paraduma, we need the water first and then the ashes. So with that, we'll finish for today, and God willing, we'll pick up with the Mishnah at the top of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, God willing, tomorrow.
Quick question.
That's nice service.
Sorry, yes,
Dr.
please.
Carr,
Hold on. Yes, go ahead, Kanan.
What do you make of the fact that the three places where the halakha kevet mikra, they're all
They're all what? Say again.
chulas. They're not chumras, right? They're all making it. You would think the Torah is being more strict, but they're saying b'chol davar. You know what I mean?
Yes,
I think
yes.
that the rabbis usually they want to make things stricter than the Torah. In general, Gezerah and all that stuff.
Yeah. I totally hear you. I wonder whether there are that there's a generation. I'm totally making this up, but this is what occurs to me. That there's a generational component to what's going on. That what we have here is that originally in the ancient days, you had the rabbis trying to make the entire Torah more livable and more usable. And then and so as real halakha l'Moshe Sinai is sort of the most ancient way to say that something is a passed down tradition. Whereas when it comes to the general usage of the rabbis, so then that's going to be where they'll be more strict. And that's especially going to be true in a post-based Hamikdash setting where we need to create additional strictures to maximize the likelihood of our situation. Now, that was what comes to mind, but in thinking about it, I'm realizing that some of these have no application post Beit Hamikdash.
So that strengthens your point.
Well, I guess it does strengthen. I guess from that perspective, it strengthens my point because these are all very ancient. So the point is to make it as livable as possible in the early days.
Bad.
All right. Have a wonderful day. Have a Shabbat Shalom. Look forward to seeing you next week. Be well.
Are
Bye-bye.
you teaching Shabbat?
What was that?
Are you teaching?
Presumably an hour before Mincha. Keep an eye on your WhatsApp to be 100% sure. I believe either Ellie or Miriam will be leading Shabbat.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.